What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to give you guys a very interesting story about how one random guy accidentally saved the NBA without really knowing it. And that might not make sense right now, but hopefully after watching the video, you guys will understand how big of an impact this one guy had. So without further ado, let's start the video. The NBA today is a $60 billion business, and in 2019 alone, the league generated $8 billion in revenue. But what if I told you there was a time when the NBA wasn't a thriving league that generated billions of dollars a year and had a huge international audience? So let's go back to the 1970s, and to be more specific, 1976, because this is when the NBA and the ABA, they merged into one league. Now, at the time, both leagues, they were desperately fighting each other for viewership, so they decided to merge both leagues because the best chance that both of them could survive. Now, the NBA in the 1970s, it was coming out of what was perceived as the golden era of basketball with Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, and they were looking for new young superstars. And up until 1976, the league hadn't found a real iconic face of the league. And at the time, the NBA, it was perceived as a second-class sport behind the NFL, Major League Baseball, college football, and even college basketball. So the future for the NBA, it was definitely up in the air, and there was a lot of uncertainty about the league's future heading forward. Now, at the same time in 1976, a young Larry Bird had just finished a stellar season at Spring Valley High School in French Lick, where he averaged 30 points per game and 20 rebounds. And despite playing at a very small school in a very small town, Larry Bird, he was good enough to attract the big scouts, and that included Hall of Fame coach Bobby Knight, who coached at Indiana. Now, if you know anything about IU, it is a big school with 30,000 people, and Larry Bird coming from a town that only had around 3,000 people, it was definitely a culture shock going to the campus of Indiana. And only 24 days after stepping foot on campus, Larry Bird, he decided to drop out from Indiana and head back home and give up his dream of being a basketball star at Indiana. Now, Larry Bird doing this, he definitely disappointed a lot of people in his hometown, and he especially disappointed his mom. And Larry Bird says his mom didn't talk to him for at least 2 months because she was so upset that he didn't stay and get an education at Indiana. And at that point in time, in Larry Bird's eyes, his basketball career, it was officially over. And soon after dropping out, he went to work for the city, collecting garbage, painting park benches, and just cleaning up around town. And Larry Bird says he actually really enjoyed this job, and he felt like he was making a big difference, making his community a better place. And he really had no aspirations of playing basketball ever again, and he saw himself just growing old, being a garbage man, painting park benches. Now, luckily for Larry Bird, there was one guy who didn't see that being his future, and that is Bill Hodges, and he is the most important person in this story. In 1976, Bill Hodges, he was an assistant coach for Indiana State University, and in the summertime, he worked as a scout trying to recruit players all across Indiana. And he had heard rumors that there was a 6'8" kid in French Lick, Indiana, who was dominating pickup runs, and that was a former high school star. So he went down to French Lick to check out who this mystery guy was. And soon after arriving in town, he immediately went to Larry Bird's mom's house, where before he could even get in the door, she told him flat out no, he did not want to play basketball anymore, and that she was tired of all the college scouts coming around asking if he wanted to play again. So Bill Hodges, he could have stopped right there and just took that no like all the other scouts and just gone back to Indiana State, but he did not do that. And the rest of the day, he went driving around town looking for a 6'8" blonde kid that was Larry Bird. And in a town of 3,000 people, it's not really that hard to find a 6'8" blonde kid. He sticks out like a sore thumb, and eventually, Bill Hodges, he did find Larry Bird at the local laundromat with his grandma. And when Bill Hodges approached Larry Bird, he was immediately shrugged off, but Larry Bird's grandma, she was actually the one who told Larry to give this guy a chance. And once they went back to Larry Bird's house again, Bill Hodges, he gave his whole pitch about how Indiana State could get an education and fulfill his promise of getting a degree. Still, after that meeting, it wasn't guaranteed that Larry Bird would sign with Indiana State, but 2 days after that, Larry Bird, he made his decision to go back to college and play basketball. And in Larry Bird's first season at Indiana State, he was historically dominant, averaging 33 points per game, 13 rebounds and 4 assists, and he led the Sycamores to a 25-3 record. And even with that great record, they were not awarded a spot in the NCAA tournament because their conference was so weak, and the majority of the voters had no respect for the Missouri Valley Conference. But by Larry Bird's senior season, Indiana State, their reputation would grow, and Larry Bird, he would help lead the Sycamores to an undefeated regular season where he would rack up some amazing awards, winning the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year, the College Basketball Player of the Year, that is for all the schools nationwide, the Wooden Award, the Naismith Award, the Rupp Trophy, and he was named an All-American. So people at this time, they were definitely aware of Larry Bird, and they were definitely aware of Indiana State as a real threat to win a national championship. And the head coach of this all-time great Indiana State team was none other than Bill Hodges, the same guy who helped recruit Larry Bird to go to Indiana State in the first place. And during this magical senior season, Larry Bird, he would find a way to lead Indiana State to the national championship game. And that 1979 championship game, that is the moment the Bird and Magic rivalry, it officially started. And that game would spark a long-lasting rivalry that would go on to save the NBA in the 1980s, and that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for Bill Hodges trying to recruit Larry Bird in that summer of 1977. And I don't know if you want to call it a butterfly effect or ripple effect or whatever, but look at the events that wouldn't have been able to happen if Bill Hodges didn't recruit Larry Bird. First off, again, there would have been no Magic and Bird rivalry, there would have been no Lakers and Celtics finals, the NBA, it would have still been on tape delay, the ratings, the viewership, it would have been extremely low, just like the 1970s. There may not have been a 1992 Dream Team, because if you remember Michael Jordan, he said he wasn't going to play if Magic and Bird didn't play, and if there was no Larry Bird, who knows if that even happens. So my larger point in this video, besides Bill Hodges accidentally saving the NBA, it's that Larry Bird had a huge role to play in saving the NBA and making the league what it is today. And if it wasn't for Bill Hodges being so persistent with recruiting Larry Bird and not taking no for an answer, you wouldn't have the multi-million-dollar contracts, the international influence, and just the nationwide support for the NBA as a league. So that really is the end of the story. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys don't take Larry Bird for granted, and I hope you realize how big of an effect Larry Bird had on saving the NBA, because if it wasn't for Larry Bird, and if it wasn't for Bill Hodges, there would be no NBA today. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked the video. Make sure to leave a like. If you haven't already subscribed, I would appreciate it if you would. But besides that, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.